Hello everyone and welcome back to this new lecture where I'll be talking about the lighting template. We are starting or continuing where we left off in the previous lecture where we finished or finalized the look dev of these little Lego figurines. In this one we will be setting up the lighting template, and it will be rather quick because we did all the hard work already for the look dev template, and lighting is very similar to look dev. We have similar areas and all that. So what I like to do now, instead of just recreating everything from scratch, I will be just saving the scene as our look dev VO2, and I'll just create a new version, save as, and instead I will just call this lighting VO1. So these are my two templates. So obviously we have a few variables set and all that, so we would need to get rid of quite a few things. So I'll be just removing quite a few of those imports and all that, so data in and all that. So for now, let's just add in a new shot. I have prepared a shot already, so let's just delete all these imports, create a importomatic, which is now we will just call this our shot importomatic, and I hit the plus sign, I add Alembic, go to the sources, and I will be loading in our first shot, which is this LGO 1120. Let's just accept that and create a new Alembic, which is our camera down here, and we do the same for 1120. We make sure that the camera is pointing to the cam location, and we make sure that the shot goes into the geolocation like that. And if I double click to view, we should be able to see Geo and Lego, and we should have the main cameras and our heroes right there. So the variable switch right now is called asset in. I want to remove that and just call this maybe shot in like that. The variable name this time will be shot instead, and I will just be deleting these inputs like that. Or I just will be renaming this, so just rename this guy to let's just call this shot, or just call actually the number, which is LGO, and we start with, I think it was 1120 for our first shot, and this obviously would need to be renamed as well, underscore LGO 1120, just to be clear and everything makes sense. So let's hook this guy up, and let's just for now rename these other ports. I think if I just rename it here, it might just work. So then we have LGO 1129, which it doesn't update it up here. So let's just, yeah, it doesn't really work both ways. So let's just delete these ports, delete this port as well, and just create a new one and just rename this to LGO 1129, which is one shot, and we created one more shot, which is LGO 1205. So these are my three shots. Right now we're just working with one of those. Then we have our asset stack, which is our material assign, or actually, sorry, this is our collection creator. So right now I don't need that. So we just call this for now just shot, maybe shot stack, and we just delete all the contents because we don't really need it. Or let's just keep the all one just in case we might need it. Call this maybe all like that, and then everything is under that collection. For now, let's just keep it at that. We might need to change it. We have our display properties, so we don't need that. This is a look dev thing, so we can get rid of this whole block. Object properties should have been set by look dev, so we don't care about these object properties either. We don't really care about the look dev section either because we already have done the look dev. What we might need, if we really want, we can just create reference spheres, or maybe rework on that turntable tool to just extract those spheres if we need to. For now, let's just get rid of the look development section. We don't need material assigns and all that. But instead of deleting this, let's just rename this to KLF assign, something like that. Like so, hit OK, and delete all our shaders because we don't need them, right? Because it's all done already. And in here, what we want to do, we can actually get rid of the baking. We can just create our look file assign like that, and then we would actually need to specify the look file for that asset. And ideally, if you have different shots, the look file assign should be handled in your shot area. So right now, if I would do it here, we would need to have a different KLF for all these assets. But because we just have that Lego guy, all we can do now is hit browse and go to our sources, our scenes, and just look for that Lego KLF, accept that, and our cell statement would be anything within Lego Lego group, and just prefix or add a suffix for LGO asterisk. So all of these children which should be assigned that look file. So look file assign, let's just name it to Lego, like that. And right after, we can do a look file resolve. The bottom here, just create that and just underscore Lego as well. So this is now the KLF assignment. If I view from here, you can see that these KLFs get assigned automatically because we have done all the hard work in the look dev scene already. The next step would be to create our global variable, our graph state variable within project settings. If you don't have that tab, click here to add it. And then let's just delete the asset variable completely. So let's just delete that and just create a new one and rename this to shot. And then our first shot is LGO 1120. So let's just fill that in. LGO 1120. Let's just create the other ones as well. LGO 1129 and one more shot, which is LGO 1205. For now, we will be just working in 1120. We can see everything is loaded in properly. And we can also rename our asset work to be shot work instead. So let's just change this guy out. Or we can call it shot area, whatever you want to feel this should be named. And just get rid of all these contents things which have been our material overrides. Change the switch name to be shot area. I think I have it 2 words, doesn't really matter. Our variable name this time would be shot. And then we can rename them one more time, or if I'm lazy, I can just copy the one from the top here and just delete all these inputs. Paste this in. So it depends now which one is faster for you. It's all good either way. So let's hook up these guys, hook this up to the switch, delete the out because that was for the look dev stuff, and just add a few more dots to make a nice straight setup here. Maybe move these out a bit, move this one out as well, delete these two guys like that, and move this one over. Alright, so now we have our shot area switch. Let's just rename this to shot area like that. And now we have that switch in place. And what we can do now in here is to actually adjust our lights. And we can see now that the light creation is happening below this, but we want it to happen actually on the top. So what I'll be doing now, I'll just be extracting this lighting setup section, unhooking this from everywhere like that. And what I want to do now is I just want to move it above this shot work section like that, so the shot work comes down here. And the benefit of this is now that I can actually create my lights. Let's just get rid of these groups here, get rid of the switch here as well, and just move this as our main gaffer. And that's actually all we need right here. And the main gaffer will be connected like that. Right on. And this one is going downstream. This is all connected. So we have the shot work back in place. Move this guy up. We don't want any turntables in lighting, so get rid of that. Now we have render settings and we have output. So these are our main features we need to work on. Because lighting is most of the time just a gaffer where you want to play with. So that's all we got to do. So we have all this. We've got the gaffer, render settings, cameras. Let's just delete this. Hit save for saving our lighting template. And let's just continue. So right now our render settings are actually reading from the same variable. So we get the same low, medium, and high settings as we have in LookDev, which is totally fine. If you want to have specific render settings for shots, you can just create another file, change the path in your batch file to change the change the batch file to change your environment variables. And that's all you gotta do. Then you have your AOV defined. So this is the stuff why we have created a macro for this. So if I just hit tab and AOV define, I can very quickly just create this again and have these ones enabled. If I don't want scatter, I can disable them or whatnot, and everything should be just working out of the box. For my render settings, right now the camera is pointed to cam camera, which we don't have. Our shot cameras are coming into cam main and main shape. So what we want to do is replace this guy here, make sure our render screen window is adjusting to height, and we want to display all AOVs. So if I view from the render settings node and I view from my camera, we can see that the camera is loaded. We get the proper frustum and the little green color there. And now all we got to do is work on the light and maybe create a basic gaffer or whatnot. And actually we need to work on our outputs. So right now this is our interactive out render, and what we want to do now is this one is cleaning out our outputs. We want to make sure that we have our outputs which we need. So let's say we want to create a shadow pass, our beauty pass, and maybe like a volume pass, right? So let's just rename all these guys. So we definitely want beauty. We want maybe a shadow pass, and let's just create one more, which is our volume pass, which is maybe volume scattering. Maybe just rename this to, instead of volume, maybe rename this to volume scattering, like that. All right, so we have these variables sets from previous previous LookDev template. So let's just get rid of these guys and get rid of, or just keep the prep for now and just see how that would help us. So this is looking for the pass, which is in this case Beauty Garage, which doesn't exist anymore just because our name is wrong. So we would just need to call this Beauty. This one would be Shadow, and this one would be Volume Scattering, like that. And let's see if that did it correctly. It does. So now our output path should be fixed accordingly. Right now there's still something missing, so we need to see what's going on in our AOV define node. What is happening here? I guess it's looking for values which doesn't exist. So in the output there is the render location, and it's looking for a certain variable like output name, which should be at the top. It's looking for project variables asset value. We don't have asset anymore, so let's just replace this with shot. And now we can see actually that it is writing to scenes LGO, which is our shot, and then it's going to output AOV and then background 01. And we would need to do this for all of these. So ideally the output path would be exposed somewhere in the macro on the top. So I didn't do this right now. So what I'll be doing, I'll just copy this quickly and paste it in all of these locations with right click, paste as expression. So now all locations have been updated, and let's just check our outputs now from the volume scattering node. And now we can see that we get LGO output, volume scattering as our output, and then AOV diffuse and then the path for that. So this is very great, and this is working as we would expect it to. Let's just add one more slot here for maybe extra geometry. Let's say you want to add a bounce plane or like a ground geometry or something like that. So let's just do a copy of a backdrop, just place it somewhere in here, and maybe just call this, maybe just first color this to light blue, and maybe just extra. And what we want to do here is now we just want to create a merge. So if you want to create maybe materials or any other objects, we can just merge them within our stream, like merge extra, like that. And let's say, because right now you can see that our figures here are actually floating. So what we can do now is just create a PC node, primitive create, and just connect that up, and maybe just rename this to PC ground like that, and hit Alt G to create a stack out of that, or maybe create one more. Let's just see why the stack creation didn't work. Oh, because we cannot create more than one stack. Doesn't matter. Yeah, so let's just create a plane, a polyplane for the ground, make it a scale, just copy this value and paste it as an expression to have actually a uniform scale here. So now we have a value of maybe 50 as our ground plane. Let's just move this a bit back. So this is now our location. We can maybe rename this geo to, instead of go to Lego, we want to do maybe, let's call it layout, and we just call it ground, and we call it ground shape like that. Let's just see what we have created now. We've got this ground geometry, very straightforward, very simple. So let's now say we want to also create a few base materials. So let's just create a material node like that, and we just edit that, create a new material, add shader, maybe Arnold surface shader, choose a standard surface one, and open this up, and let's just try to get a basic 18% gray and rename this material to maybe just gray, and merge that with our scene. So we now have materials and gray, and we can just have a namespace for this, call it maybe materials, and we just say primitive as well, primitive like that. So we have primitive shaders, very simple stuff, and we can change our specular maybe to 0.55, and that should be good for our ground plane. So this is now merged in, and we can just now do a material assign because we have created everything. Our geometry is coming in, so we can just create a material assign stack. A material, just a material assign, and then hit Alt G to create a stack from that and hook these guys up like that. And now all we want to do now is just maybe assign MA, call this one gray, and we want to assign the gray shader to our geometry, which we specify as a path, and we just hit the ground, and now the ground is connected right there. We can also have a better way if we want to do that. Also, maybe have it under layout, and we just call this maybe ground like that, and then we do another ground like so. It's just to keep the same convention as our main geometry like so. Back into the assign stack, let's just choose the GRND instead. So this is now assigning it at that location, and now we should be having a ground right there. So you can see now the camera moves in, and this is now my first shot. Obviously our light, we still are in the garage, so what we can do just for the main gaffer, or just for in preparation for the next lecture, we can just make sure that we don't have this gaffer connected, because we want to have like a proper shot HDRI. So let's just get rid of that and create a few more rig groups. So right now we have environment here. Let's just hit R to create a new rig. Let's just call this maybe key, and let's just create one more for rim, one more for fill lights. So these are my main rig groups, and I have my gaffer, which is, let's say, defining the sequence lighting. It will define the lights and all that, but we will be talking about this in the next lecture. So let's see what else we have. We have our outputs here. We've got our render settings. We have our output define nodes. Got our interactive render filters, which are the same as we had in LookDev. So now we can do maybe different settings like motion blur on, which we already created as a universal one. So if you have any specific ones for lighting, you can just easily go back and just add a few more, or remove a few ones. And in the previous lecture where I was talking about interactive render filters, you can have a look how this was set up exactly. So very straightforward. Let's just work on some lighting work for the next lecture. So thank you guys for having a quick look at the lighting template setup, And we might add a few more features here and there, but for now this is our basic lighting template. So hitting save, and I will see you in the next lecture.